Let's take a breath together. So our talk this morning, this month, is Bright Beginnings, which we are certainly smack in the middle of. And this morning's talk title is Fire in the Belly. And that can be taken so many different ways. It's easy to see in a time like this where we're experiencing it at the earth level as a time of crisis. It's easy to see what we call the fire in the belly in the medical profession, in our paramedics, in our EMTs, in our firefighters, in our police officers, our nurses, our doctors, our respiratory therapists, all the way to the very people that clean the hospital. There is a fire in the belly of some folks that when everyone else is running away, they run to the danger, or what we interpret as danger. And it's easy to understand this concept of the fire in the belly from that perspective. But what we're going to talk about this morning is inviting ourselves to a different perspective. That quite literally, the fire in the belly is the very essence of your nature. When I was studying the Kabbalah in ministerial school, it was about raising the spark. That there is a divine spark within every element of creation. And that the practice is about raising that divine spark. In New Thought, the way we talk about that is that there's one source. We're all created out of it, by it, to be it. Same divine spark, different words. I'm going to talk about it this morning in the context of one of my favorite processes, that of the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Because one of the most magical things about this thing called a caterpillar and its process are these things called imaginal cells. And within the caterpillar are these things called imaginal cells that compel the caterpillar in its process. And I oftentimes chuckle to myself because I think, and if I'm being honest, I don't know if the caterpillar has a choice or not. I know I have choices. And I know when I watch the process of this hungry larva come about and just eat every leaf it can find until some moment where it just stops eating, attaches itself to a branch, literally turns its world upside down, hanging in midair on a branch, and cocoons itself. And I think what's important here is to recognize this is all being done by the caterpillar. This is a process that its individualized expression is saying yes to. And in that process of the cocoon, it stops eating, and all of its cells literally begin to die. Its identity as a caterpillar is dying. True transformation means the previous form is unrecognizable. And that's exactly what happens in that process of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. That caterpillar form literally disintegrates, becomes a gelatinous goo. At some point in those processes, within that caterpillar, these things called imaginal cells take over. And within those imaginal cells is the idea and reality of the butterfly. Now, I can't explain that any more than I can explain creation at a human level, where one cell replicates itself identically, and then at some magical point differentiates and becomes all of the parts of this magnificent thing that we call the human body. But I can step back far enough to begin to see that we're talking about the same process, from the same essence. And when I look at fire in the physical realm, it transforms everything it touches. I've been a firefighter. I've been in a fire. I've watched it dance and I've watched it move, and it literally has a life of its own. It breathes and it moves and it transforms everything it touches. Everything. Nothing is in its recognizable state. And the longer something stays in the fire, the more unrecognizable it becomes. And perhaps another way to explore this is the idea of the phoenix that rises from the ashes. That perhaps what we're being invited to be is the previous form. The fire itself, the transformation process, and the new identity, the phoenix that rises out of the fire. I know there's tons of research happening right now that actually demonstrates scientifically that a lot more of our body, our physical being, is guided by our gut than we ever knew. And perhaps that's not a mistake. Perhaps we're waking up to that fire in the belly is actually quite real. And then we're just grabbing onto a greater understanding of it. Rumi, because y'all know I love me some Rumi, says this: when the brain and the belly burn from fasting, every moment a new song rises out of the fire. Now we're in a time of Ramadan right now, and during Ramadan it's a time of fasting. But it's not just fasting from food and liquid and sex. It's a time of fasting from gossip. It's a time of fasting from all of the things that we're attached to in this earthly experience. And so what if we lived from that fire? What if we stopped making it heroic and make it quite normal? What if we allow anything unlike the deity that we are to be consumed and transformed in that fire, and allow ourselves to be quite literally transformed and rise out of our own ashes? What if we did that? Now, I don't know about you, But I know my constant dance is holding the apparent conflictual thoughts of oneness in a world that certainly looks like it is steeped in duality. But then I remember the caterpillar. Bunch of cells, one process, one caterpillar, and I extrapolate that out. That perhaps my human vehicle is simply one cell in the body of the infinite. And that as my cell gives way to this creative process, this process of transformation, that is how the whole body of the infinite is transformed. That as we lean into the fire, as we surrender our human attachments and our human identities, that we quite literally transform into an expression and an experience of what we've always been. See, we're not becoming something different. We're transforming our experience. We're transforming our experience and our expression and our identity. What do I identify as? And are you willing to ignite those imaginal cells that are at the center of your being? Because I assure you that you are here on purpose, and that your purpose quite literally is an expression of the one, the divine, God itself, whatever name you put on it. You are here as an expression of its heart. Oh my God! Will we allow ourselves to be that? Will we allow ourselves to experience that? To be transformed by that? Because that is the fire in every belly. And it's going to show up differently. Some of us, the fire in our belly does really cool things, like drop off flowers. I come in this morning and the flower fairy has been by here. I have no idea who brought them, but if you're listening, thank you. But there was a fire in the belly of whoever brought those flowers that said, do this. And they said yes. Those that teach our children in schools, the fire in their belly says teach. Those that are lawyers, the fire in the belly says dig in. Make sure that everybody's getting a fair shake. Interpret. Change. Interpret again. Those of us that have that fire in the belly to run toward danger, I have it. I wish I could explain it to you. I can't. I can't. But what I know is that it has been my nature since I arrived in human form. And that's how I know it's the fire in my belly. And it has changed form over time. It started as a first responder, and then it evolved to an EMT. And then it evolved to a firefighter. And then it evolved to a deputy sheriff. And then a social worker. And now, and I laugh because all of those things came together to run into the greatest fire of all, humanity, as a minister. So it doesn't necessarily have to look like one thing. But there's a core thing that you are called to do. And I invite you this morning, feed that. Stoke that ember within you. Let go of all the ideas that limit what you think you can do with that fire. And simply lean into the fire. Lean into your divinity. And simply say yes to expressing that. Let's take this into prayer. Remembering again, recognizing again, the one, the infinite, the ever-present allness. One perfect peace, one perfect power, one infinite abundance, one absolute infinite intelligence. One, I am. This is the life of all, so it must be my life. And so I speak from that I am place this morning, recognizing that I am the infinite in form. That I am all that it is in experience and expression. That I am the very heartbeat and desire of creation itself to know itself as this human life. And so I speak my word this morning for all expressions of I am. Releasing any need to hold on to a limited identity that no longer serves the full power and presence of the infinite as life. A recognition and a realization that I am is all there is. And an arms wide open, free fall into the fire of transformation that burns away anything unlike itself, giving birth, giving rise to the perfection of expression as the phoenix within each and every one of us, as the fire in the belly, releasing the imaginal cells of creation itself to imagine and reimagine itself over and over again as an evolving creation. Grateful to know this is exactly how it works, and there's no stopping it. Grateful to live in that yes. Yes, yes. And so I release into that yes, knowing that it's already done, that the activity of creation itself that I call law has it handled. So I let go, I let it be. And I invite you this morning to join me as we anchor this together by saying, Amen. Ashe. Aho. And so it is.